Sure. Oh my goodness. I actually got delayed because I got in a fight with Dev of all people. Like I didn't expect to actually get into a controversy with him so early in the morning. But the bait was too strong and I was too weak. So I don't know if I should talk about it now or just wait for making a video and uploading it on my main channel and you guys can see it there. Because then I would be able to collect my thoughts and say everything that I want to. But basically, the reason that it triggered me is the fact that I actually understood why, despite the fact that I'm on the side of Ukraine, there's other people that are also on the side of Ukraine, and I just can't suffer them. It's like they're siding with Ukraine in the wrong way, if that makes any sense. And Dev helped me realize why that is. And I think I can describe a little bit here. But for those of you who don't know, the Pentagon, well, actually, Biden authorized the use of long-range missiles from the Ukrainians to the point where they can now hit Russia proper. And the reason that this is an issue is that a couple of months ago, President Putin suggested that if such a thing was to occur, he would consider the nuclear possibility. So it's kind of like when the United States invaded Iraq. Imagine if China would have given Iraq long-range missiles that could hit the Pentagon, could hit bases in Texas, right? Like, how would the U.S. respond if that were to occur? And Putin says, like, well, at this point, it would symbolize, like, full U.S. involvement. Because in order to use these long-range missiles, you gotta use satellites from the United States. You gotta have, like, technicians that know how to operate them. So it would be like a full U.S. Joining of the war, basically. And obviously, like, this escalates things, right? And most people, like even myself, who I'm on the side of Ukraine, due to the geographical region that I'm in, due to the the history that Russia has with Eastern Europe, even I'm like, well, hold on a little bit. Like, we need to assess the reality of the situation, right? Like, we live in a real world. Like, there's real people involved. There's the lives that are at stake, and it's also like, how long should this war be allowed to continue? Like, and what does Dev have to say about it? Well, Dev has to say, let me show you the take that he has. Based shoot more. And at this point, I realized the difference between him and I. And the difference is that while I live in the real world, Dev is playing a video game. It's like Red Alert. It's kind of like, okay, so what if Russia retaliates in a nuclear manner? Well, it doesn't matter. We nuke them back. And we managed to take the Moscow, and it's victory. We won the game, and like we can start anew. And I'm like, dude, like, you don't have safes coming in the real world, like the mutual assured destruction still exists. I'm so glad you weren't in charge during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Like, holy shit. Like, I know Destiny doesn't talk about it, but mutually assured destruction still is a thing, Dev fully realizes that Canada would be dragged into war. However, to this psychology, he is not going to be conscripted. I don't think Canada would be dragged into a war, to be honest. Which is probably why he has these things that are called luxury beliefs. Thank you, Pedro, for $2 for dealing with Dev. However, I think I'm worth more than $2 for the neurons that I lost. Yeah, it's okay. I saved that game pretty much. They have already used all their missiles in Crimea. Like, there's no way of knowing, man. There's no way of knowing how many missiles they used. Like, this would be a strict military top secret. That we can hypothesize that they may have used a lot, but like I wouldn't know like how many missiles are produced per day and how many are shipped to Ukraine in order to be able to assess like how many missiles they used. Mutually assured destruction is not a thing. It is absolutely a thing. I don't like, you just don't understand the damage that a nuke does. And I'm not talking about like the number of people that would be affected, the number of people that would kill. No, like let's assume a nuclear missile falls next to your town, right? And let's even assume that the radiation doesn't kill you. The EMP alone would just completely short circuit anything electrical. So if you have a gas stove, you're lucky. But if you have an electric stove, you can't use it. If it's the middle of the winter, you can't heat your home. If you have a smart house, you're fucked. You cannot use the internet. You cannot use the phone. You cannot drive a car. So imagine this, right? Like your supermarkets would get out of food pretty quickly, and there would be no way to replenish them for quite a while. If you have a credit card, if you don't have cash, you're fucked. Hospitals are fucked. Like, most doctors do not know how to do medicine without the use of modern equipment. Like, they do not know how to operate on someone without the use of MRI, of medical imagery. And then they're also not legally allowed to do it, even in the case of an emergency. So basically, you're fucked. And this is just from the EMP alone. Like, we're not even talking about like what would happen if you're actually caught by radiation or you're in the blast area or no. And take into account that the relief efforts, they would probably focusing around the blast area first, and then they would come to you. Like, here's the thing, with Japan, when they got 2 cities nuked, we're talking about a society that was just like a a World War II era society, right? Like, they didn't have credit cards, they didn't need the internet, right? Like, they could survive just fine with a horse and carriage. I mean, they still have horses and carriages because cars were... it's not that they were relatively new, but it's mostly rich people that could afford them, right? But our society is now built around modern technology. Like, you need trucks in order to deliver food. You need all these vehicles, and you need people to talk to each other. I mean, remember the damage that was done to the United States when some hackers hacked a pipeline, right? Like, this is what we're talking about. That you'd have all of that just offline from a single explosion. Like, it's terrible. The damage alone is so great that you don't actually need to even use the destructive capability of the nuke as in the explosion. Like, the EMP itself is a powerful weapon. And I'm not even talking about the chaos and the gangs and all of that, you know, because, like, again, imagine this, right? Like, if your entire electronics are down, how do you call the police if someone wants to rob your house? Like, what do you do? Oh, and by the way, your freezer isn't working as well, as a bonus. Like, it is absolutely insane. Like, to think, to even suggest that mutual assured destruction isn't the thing, you must be crazy. Now, I don't think, like, everyone on Earth will die, obviously. But I do think that the damage would be so catastrophic that World War... Like if you had, you know, the worst case scenario where everyone is nuking everyone. I think that it would make World War II look like a joke. And it's not just, like, the number of people that would die when it happens, but it also, like, how much time it would take to recover and to rebuild society back to the point where it was. It may not even happen in our generation. It would be just... no super chats before, because Android doesn't let me, only PC. Oh, I see. Do people in Romania have high-tech items like refrigerators? No, what we do is we dig a hole in the ground, and the temperature in the soil is a lot colder than the one on top, so, like, we put the food in there. And we also have, like, every house has, like, a basement. We're very rich. We afford basements, so yeah. I can't believe the Democrats took their last mouth of power to start World War III, when Trump's goal was to end the war as soon as possible. How evil they have to be to do that, and think that they are on the right side of history. Yeah, like, it is very unconventional for a president to make these types of decisions within his last months. when he's a lame duck. Like, usually when you're a lame duck president, you just want to fill it. It would be kind of like, okay, you know when Joe Biden got a colonoscopy and he had to be put under because Americans are weak and they can't just do the colonoscopy without anesthetic like we do it in Eastern Europe? I'm not kidding. That's actually how it's done here. Like, they don't... They allow you to enjoy the butt exploration. Right. So like when Joe Biden got a colonoscopy, it was like a couple of weeks that... Sorry, not a couple of weeks. A couple of hours where Kamala Harris was president. So, de facto, America had the female president because the vice president was acting president. Right? Imagine if, like, for a couple of hours, while she's acting president, she would decide to do some shit. Like, I don't know, green light a hit on North Korea. Like something like that, you know? It's pretty much comparable to what's happening now. Like, legally speaking, she could. Like, legally speaking, no one could have stopped her. Right? Like, if she authorizes a strike on North Korea, let's say. Why? Because she wants to. She's the acting commander-in-chief. Dev is out of his mind on this. I know. And I'm on the side of Ukraine. Like, I want to remind people why that is. It's the geographical era, right? Like, European politics, especially international European politics, they're not dictated by ideology. They're dictated based on who your neighbors are and what resources you have. So, for instance, Hungary is pro-Russian because they take their gas from Russia. They have no other natural resources. They have no other alternative to take gas from. So, like, they have to take gas from Russia, which is why the Hungarians are pro-Russian. Like, it's the reality of the situation. If they don't do this, they starve during the winter. But, like, one of the things that most people don't ask is not the question of why NATO is getting so close to Russia, right? Because this is the question that most people go. It's like, well, why is NATO expanding? The real question is, like, why do nations join NATO? Because you wouldn't see Mexico join Russia in a military alliance, right? Like, why aren't Poland and Romania, like, why don't we join a Russian alliance, right? Like that would be the question. Why aren't Eastern European nations joining a Russian alliance? Because Russia is closer, like, it would make more sense, right? Why isn't Canada joining a Chinese alliance against America? And the answer is because American politics, regardless of the things that they did which are bad, at least they don't do it in their backyard. Like, Americans throughout history, with some exceptions, they weren't shitting in their backyard. Like, they weren't shitting with Canada, they weren't shitting... There are exceptions, of course, but, like, in recent history, in the last couple of 100 years, like, America has treated its neighbors as fair as possible. Like, even with Mexico. Like with Mexico... If Russia was in the place of America, they would have probably annexed Mexico by now and dealt with the cartels. Like that's what I think would have happened, right? Russia, however, they have treated their entire, almost all of their neighbors, they have treated them poorly. They have conflicts with most of them, and this is not due to the Soviet Union and, you know, like, helping us find communism and fucking our nations for decades. No. Like, this is historically speaking. Most of the treaties that Romania have signed with Russia, in fact, not most, all of them, have been disrespected by Russia. Like they are almost like guaranteed to disrespect any contract you sign with them. Even the Ottoman Empire honored its treaties with us far more than the Russians. So this is why you have, like, this Russian skepticism in Eastern Europe. And why so many nations are joining NATO. So you know, with that out of the way, you can understand why all Romanians... I mean, you're very hard-pressed to find a single Romanian that is pro-Russian in this. So even though I'm pro-Ukraine, I still have to wonder, why the fuck do I dislike Dev so much? Because he's pro-Ukraine either. Like, why do I dislike him on this so much? And the answer is that he treats this as a video game. Right? Like, for people like me who are thinking about the geopolitics and the actual loss of human lives, and we're thinking about the consequences and how can we make it so that it doesn't envelop more nations and the conflict doesn't expand, right? Like, we have a more nuanced take, while Dev is like, based, shoot more. and he's referring, in case you just joined the stream, he's referring to long-range missiles that can be shot from Ukraine into Russia, and Putin has said that this is a red line and he's going to consider using the nuclear option if this happens, right? So, like, my side is like, well, maybe we shouldn't fuck around to find out. Like, they can still carry on the conflict without doing this. While their side is based, shoot more, and if you don't like this, you're a pacifist cock. And, you know, like, isn't this a luxurious belief then? Like, if I was in Canada, I could afford not being a pacifist cock. Like, if you're sitting in Canada, you can warmonger as much as you want. But when the conflict is next to the border, and not to mention, like, another thing that's annoying is the fact that I don't think he donated a single dollar to the conflict. Like, he is so strong, such a strong supporter, and such a strong believer. But, like, how much has he donated? Is he going to enlist? There are people that enlisted. Like, there are Canadians, civilians that enlisted. No, he's not. Okay. So he's just going to be a cheeky little shit on Twitter. All right. Well. If mass migration wasn't enough with this nuclear war as a last act of desperation, I'm truly convinced leftists want to destroy Western civilization before themselves. I don't know, man. I generally don't know what's going on. But take into account, a lot of rich people, they have, like, a different way of thinking than you and I. Because I was talking about the situation in the UK, right? Where they decided to fuck with the farmers. And apparently the slogan with a lot of leftists nowadays seems to be, like, living in the city and saying, fuck the people who make our food. Like, that is like, when I think about the slogan that leftism has. It's not workers of the world unite anymore. It's not you've got nothing to lose but your chains. No, like, the new slogan seems to be fuck the people who make our food. And a lot of people were thinking, well, why would they do that? Like, that could cause a famine. And I'm thinking, okay, like, imagine you're a British politician, right? Like, how much money do you make for being a British politician? Well, the answer is enough so that you're the last person that's going to starve. And if things go that bad, you can just go to some other country. Like, when you're that rich, you can literally just pack up and leave. So, you're looking at that, and you're like, well, maybe that's why they don't care. And maybe that's why politicians shouldn't be paid as much. Because they should live a humble life, the same as the people that they govern over. Because when you live a rich life and you're disconnected, all of a sudden you get to have a lot of luxurious belief. Dev has said that he would enlist if they open up the draft for conflict with Russia, full well knowing he would never be called upon the draft, being morbidly obese. I don't care in what he says. I would care in what he does. And unfortunately, I can never find that out until the actual thing happens. You know? Because, I too could say, oh, yes, sure, like, if Russia is to invade Romania, oh, I would be the first, yes, like, I would be literally on the front line. And the answer is, I genuinely don't know how I would react. I literally have absolutely no clue, unless I'm placed in the situation. Because, preferably, yeah, like, I would want to do my patriotic duty. But on the other hand, I do have a family. So, I don't know. I generally don't know what I would do. But on the internet, yeah, absolutely. I would be the first. I would... In fact, I would throw away other people from the enlisting line just so I can be first. Dev on the side of Cheney, McCain, Bush, and Bolton. He's a right-winger now? What are your thoughts on the Norway's wall of shame for the entrepreneurs who left because of the tax on unrealized gains? It should be a wall of shame for the politicians that placed the tax and caused entrepreneurs to leave their country. That's the correct way of thinking. Like, those people did nothing to you, and you fucked with them so that now you have capital flight. I would be proud to be on that wall of shame. So, yeah, no, Europe is absolutely fucking its entrepreneurial spirit. Like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to go to the United States. There's no reason to do it in Europe. Like, so many taxes, so many legislations, it's insane. So, no, the wall of shame should definitely be for politicians. In fact, the entrepreneur should create a website of wall of shame with the politicians that fuck the Norwegian entrepreneur environment, and allow people to see it. That's the correct way of thinking. Another, there is a reason why leftists have so much power in society, and that is because people look up to their institutions and look up to their leaders as if they're infallible and they can do nothing wrong. So, like, here's an example. I think it was J.D. Vance that basically posted that if the European Union keeps fucking with Elon Musk's Twitter and they keep imposing sanctions on American companies and social media, they will consider withdrawing NATO support. And a lot of people here were like, oh my God, he's crazy, he's insane. How can you say something like that? How can you say something like that? How can you say that you're going to withdraw European support? Like, who do you think you are? And my question was like, it shouldn't be like, why would America withdraw military support from NATO? The real question would be, why is the European Union willing to jeopardize national security just to fuck with Elon Musk's Twitter? Like, how important is it to fuck with Elon Musk's Twitter at that point? Right? Because, like, you're basically saying that your national security is not as important as censoring social media. Because, why? You want to keep people safe? Like, how many people do you actually keep safe by censoring social media versus how many people you keep safe by being in NATO and not having Russia invade? Like, it's astronomically disproportionate. So, obviously, it's not about keeping people safe. The thing with the European Union, and this is opening another conversation, is that the European Union has no defense force, like we're relying on NATO. We have no social media, we're relying on the United States. We have no energy sector. We relied up until recently on Russia, and now we're relying on the United States. They have no investigative body. They rely on the United Nations to do investigations. They have no manufacturing. We're relying on China. But what we do have is regulations and an ample supply of arrogant politicians. Like, they're acting like they're in charge of the world while using everyone else's shit. The problem with using someone else's shit is that the person can at any point tell you, do what I say or I take my shit away. And they don't like it when they fuck around and they find out and they view it. It's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, we should be able to regulate US social media. You shouldn't be able to take your military away from us. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And by the way, the reason, like let me give you an example why the EU is the way it is. Like, you gave the example with Norway, with the tax, right? Like, they put the tax, they already regulate the entrepreneurs way too much, and then they put the tax, and it's not just the tax that the entrepreneurs leave, by the way. They also leave because they've been fucked with so much to the point where they're making an assessment. It's like, how much do we lose if we stay versus how much do we gain if we leave? And this is what the EU does. Like, it constantly regulates and regulates to the point where most of the EU companies are leaving. They're leaving towards China or they're leaving towards the United States. Here's an example. We actually did start to have an EU social media. Right? Like, this is, you should wonder, like, why doesn't the European Union have its own social media? Like, the United States have its social media, China has its social media, Japan has its social media, even Brazil. Even Brazil have their own version of Twitter. Why doesn't the European Union have its own version of social media? And the answer is GDPR. So GDPR is a series of regulations that, they seem nice in theory. It protects people's data. But they're incredibly, excruciatingly expensive to implement. And they're even more expensive if you don't implement them, because then you get fined. And the fines are obnoxious. So what ends up happening is that most people that want to create a social media, they go to the US, or they go to China, or they go to any other place, and they make their social medias there. And this is why the European Union doesn't have its social media program. The same with AI. Like, the European Union cannot have artificial intelligence because of the regulation. So what do? Oh, we use the AI from the US. Like we constantly, and by we, the politicians constantly destroy with over like they're addicted to regulations to the point where they destroy all the economy from the European Union, and then they just create the European Union as a vassal state to all the other superpowers, and they don't even realize it. Because again, like at any point, like China can come up, and like for instance, the EU didn't want to put tariffs on China's automobiles factory, right? The automobile manufacturing, and I was like, well, of course they wouldn't. Like, it should be Germany that was the one manufacturing cars, and China should want to buy German cars. Like, we should worry about China tariffing Germany cars, not the other way around. But because of environmentalism, because of the green policies and all this shit, it's a lot better if you're a car manufacturer to just go to China. I mean, Elon Musk wanted to open a car factory in the EU, and I think, like, he chose not to in the end. It's insane. Like, why are they doing this? And when you look at it, it's like, who is doing this? Well, the politicians that go to EU, they're getting paid, I think it's like $10,000 up front, around that. And then they're getting paid $350 for every single day they show up to work. So in total, they make like 20, 30 grand a month. A month, just for, like, imagine this, right? Like, imagine this. You're elected to go to Brussels, and you're making around 30 grand a month. And this is beyond all the other benefits that you're getting. Like even some of the richest millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie Sanders like to call them, do not make this level of obscene amount of wealth, do not have like this level of obscene amount of privileges. And when you're surrounded and showered by the wealth, do you think you give a fuck? No, you don't. You become arrogant. How did you know I don't have a haircut, Cryptic? And thank you for the 46.97 Romanian dollars. I own Texas company. One form is all I filled. Jesus Christ, that is so amazing. Holy shit. Like, I actually have to hire a company to fill all my forms. The Prime Minister of the UK is getting out of the UK after screwing things up. That's how shameless the politicians are. What was it that the guy from Scotland? The one that goes, oh, this guy white, this other guy white, everyone else is white, and now he's like, I'm fleeing because of racism. It's like, what racism? You are actually the prime minister. Like, people actually elected you to be in that position. What the fuck? Yeah, close off all the factories in the EU because they pollute, and then move them to China, where they're allowed to pollute even more, and not required to pay reasonable salaries. Correct. Yeah, this is what the EU has been doing, and there's no way to fight against it. Like, you can't vote your way out of the system. It's such a corrupt system that the politicians know they will not be held accountable. So, yeah. And if you look at the trend, it's like once they put a regulation, they rarely, if ever, remove it. Like, once it's regulated, it's a done deal. And if it doesn't pass the first time, they will try passing it 6 or 7 times until it actually passes. And once it passes, it's a done deal. Do non-European countries be a good alternative to move to? From what I know, like, a lot of people from Norway move to Switzerland, but like the legislation in Switzerland is not that great compared to the EU. The best thing to do is to move to America. Like, that's it. Like, if you're an entrepreneur, if you have money, if you want to open a business, you just go to the US. His kid was rejected from a daycare. He cried racismus. The daycare was run by a Bangladeshi woman. Doesn't surprise me. Since Germany started making the Volkswagen Beetle downhill. No, it's insane, right? Because, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would countries destroy their own industry? And the answer is, it's like, well, it's not the countries that want to destroy the industry. It's the politicians, right? So, like, the politicians vote on stuff. Most people don't know how the stuff actually affects the industry. And then people just realize, well, hold on a little bit. We don't have an industry anymore. Like, if you look at the GDP per capita, you would notice that at one point, the EU and the United States were tied. Like, we were literally tied on GDP. And after that, the European Union just goes downhill while the Americans keep climbing. And most of the innovations and most of the inventions come from the US, and all the regulations come from the EU. And you gotta wonder, like, is anyone going to be held accountable for this? Like, if this was a company, the shareholders would want to talk with the CEO. You have to destroy or leave the EU. There's no way to destroy it, really. Unless you have, like, more countries leaving the EU. Like, you have, like, more Brexit. But the thing with Brexit, like, a lot of people say, well, it didn't go well. And the answer it didn't go well is that once Brexit happened, they didn't go to the path of the United States, right? Like, you had Trump that wanted to create a mutual trade agreement between the US and the UK. And, you know, like, make sure that they're having, like, an economic agreement that doesn't have tariffs, that doesn't have any extra added taxes. And apparently, no, like, the UK, yeah, like, they left the European Union, but they still behave as if they're in the European Union. Like they still have the same policies on immigration. They still have the same policies on environmentalism. Like they left in name only. But, like, what is the purpose of leaving if you're still going to apply the same policies? I wonder why Poland and Hungary don't leave the EU. In order for them to leave, they would have to agree to leave at the same time, I guess. Like, it is possible that once the conflict with Ukraine stops, that certain Eastern European nation may review if it's beneficial or not to stay in the EU. But take into account, like, again, the politicians themselves, they like the European Union because they get perks and they get bonuses. Like imagine going to work and you're making around $20,000 to $30,000 a month. Why would you ever want that to end? I mean, sure, it's not good for your country, but, like, at the end of the day, it's good for you and your family. 30 grand a month. Holy shit, right? So, this is why, like, politicians don't really want to leave the European Union. And then it's also easy because they don't really have to do much, just implement EU policies, right? Like, someone else thinks for you, and you're just a politician and you rubber stamp. So that also can work. Yeah, it's called corruption. That is correct. The EU is an aristocracy, and the peasants can't hold the aristocrats responsible. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, they behave like aristocrats. Like, if you actually listen to them speak, if you actually listen to how they view themselves, and yeah, they definitely view like as aristocrats. Like, there is a close modern equivalent to how nobility would behave. Especially like the Greens. I mean, holy shit. Okay, look at Germany. There have been recent cases where politicians, and mostly from the Green parties, have demanded investigations into people that made fun of them. So, like, there's this guy that called the Green politician fat, which, to be fair, was an accurate description of reality, because I saw the picture, and it's like, you put it in the dictionary as the picture next to fat, and it's like, it's accurate. People would now understand, like, if an alien looks at a dictionary and tries to understand what fat is, and sees that lady, it's like, oh, okay. But, no, like, she actually asked the German equivalent of the FBI, I don't know how they call it, the Bundeswehr or something like that, they have a German name for it. And they asked, like, the German equivalent of the FBI to look into who said this about her. And they found out that the person was on Gab. So, like, they sent Andrew Torba a request to give away all the data and information on this person. And Gab told it to fuck off. So, the thing was that I was talking with a German. And he was telling me how a couple of years ago, this is, like, not even that back. It's not even that back. It's like maybe 15, 20 years ago. He went to a fair with his family. And at the fair, they had, like, various caricatures of politicians. And they had one with Merkel that looked like a devil. And it was humorous, right? And the thing was, like, as he's looking at these caricatures, he's like, well, you know, I'm so glad that I live in Germany, a free country, and I don't live in China, or I don't live in North Korea, or I don't live in Turkey, where these types of things wouldn't be allowed. Like you wouldn't be allowed to make fun of the ruling class, the elites, the politicians, right? Well, I don't think you can say that anymore. I don't think, like, you're looking at the news, I don't think you can say that. And the funny thing is, it's like, all right, let's say that you generally hate these politicians and the arrogance. It's like, why should you not be able to make fun or satirize a politician if you're in a free country? Like, they work for you, right? Like, you pay taxes, so you should be able to make fun of them. And if you want to vote for the alternative, you vote for the AFD. And when you vote for the AFD, they want to ban your party now. And like, for those of you who don't know, yeah, like, they're actually trying to get the AFD banned before the next snap elections in Germany. And the AFD is the second largest party in the country. And the reason they hate it is because they can't make governments without including the AFD. They can't make political alliances without including the AFD. So, like, they're livid about it. It's like, God damn it, why do people vote this way? And this is where we're at. Not only that, but anti-personnel mines have to make politicians fear for their lives if they stay. I mean, isn't that like the theme in V for Vendetta? But there's also the reason why the founding fathers gave weapons to American citizens, and they actually state it's like, well, and how do you say it? Like a well-armed militia in order to guarantee the security, right? To fight off against the potential tyrannical government. When the U.S. packed taxpayer welfare for Eurotrash defense, they'll collapse. The thing is, like, the United States, they like the European Union. I don't know why you think that the U.S. doesn't like the situation. By providing for NATO, first and foremost, you're preventing a world war. Like, most both world wars started from Europe, right? And it's usually Germany starting to piss people off and do some shit, and then you have, like, a world war. So by making sure that Europe's defense is actually directed towards NATO than, like, each individual country's army, you're actually weakening Europe, and you're making sure that you guys are there. And then you can do stuff like blow up a pipeline, and if anyone complains, you guys can go, and then what? Right? Like this is why the United States can basically fuck with Germany, and if Germany says something, America can just be, and then what? So when you guys have, like, a conflict with China, right? Like, you guys are the world hegemon, and you don't want China to get any ideas with Taiwan or the Red Chinese Sea, and you also don't like the fact that Russia is getting too close with China, you're like, okay, well, we're going to isolate Russia first. And we're going to use boycotts and sanctions against it, and we're going to force the EU to use boycotts and sanctions. Like, do you honestly think Germany wanted to sanction Russia? Like, let's be honest. Germany was very connected with Russia economically, politically. They don't enjoy what they have to do, but it's because America has NATO, and you're telling them you're going to do it. And they have no alternative. They have no other choice. So you're basically dictating European foreign policy. You're basically dictating how Europe gets its energy and where it gets it from. You can force Europe to buy liquid gas now because they can't buy it from the Russians. Like, no, for America, NATO is a very well-founded endeavor. The 1,000 miles unsecured border with the British, French, Spanish, and many tribes also helped with the whole needing a militia thing. This is why the British actually managed to colonize the New World where everyone else failed. So this is actually very fascinating from a history point of view, right? Because, like, America wasn't the only ones that tried to colonize the New World. It was also Spain, France, right? Britain was with the colonies. And when you look at how they did things, it's very interesting. So, like, Spain wouldn't allow their colonists to have guns. So with Spain, if you had, like, a Spanish colony, the people themselves weren't armed, and they would have to rely on, like, the Spanish military force for defense. So, like, let's say you're being attacked by the natives during the night. you're kind of fucked, right? Because they don't have telephones, they don't have access to the internet to call for a rapid response team. So by the time the military would arrive, the entire place would be torched. The British did things differently. The British were like, no, you're allowed to have guns, and this is your farm, and it's yours to keep, just pay taxes. And the people, it's like, okay, well, the natives are coming in the middle of the night. Someone starts shooting, the neighbors wake up, they start shooting as well. And then the natives fuck off. So they created more sustainable colonies. Now, unfortunately, by giving arms to people, you can make the argument that they rebelled. However, it's not that simple because some of the city, like a lot of Europeans don't know this, but like not all colonists were on the side of independence. Like there were a lot of loyalists and people that were siding with the British Empire. And the weapons were also, like they also started manufacturing weapons way before the Declaration of Independence. So, I think it would have happened anyway. But yeah, like the reason that they were more effective at withstanding invasions, bandits, natives, and so on and so forth is because people were allowed to have guns. Hey V, what's up? Talking about America. Not all people know this, but Canada actually set fire to the White House. I don't know if people know this. And apparently, like, Washington was actually saved by a rain. Washington, D.C., right? Like they set fire to the White House and the fire would have expanded. Because it's not just the White House that they set fire to. It was, like, the city. But then you had, like, heavy rain right after, so it got put out. I just learned from the guns from YouTube last week. No, I know about it for years, but I'm pretty sure Americans know, but the Europeans don't. It was British infantry regulars, not Canadian militia. They came from Canada. It doesn't count. Less talking about small things and more talking about big things like them. I already talked about them. I'll make a video on my channel. To be honest, like, I find them insightful in the way that by understanding the dev, you understand the liberal mindset. And, you know, like for instance, I would have never understood, like, why is it that despite the fact that I'm on the side of Ukraine, other people who are also on the side of Ukraine, are annoying the living shit out of me. Because, like, usually this doesn't happen, right? Like, if you have a person that's on the same side as you, like, you pretty much get along with them. And then I talk with them and I see that he's treating this like a video game. And that's why it pisses me off. Like, even though he's on my side, like, treating a foreign conflict, a war, like a football match or like a video game is enough to drive someone crazy. It's like a lack of respect for human life, a lack of respect for consequences, like failure to understand the situation. So yeah, the destiny mindset, correct. V, if any of us really understood them, we would be raging homosexuals. He's straight though, isn't he? Like he actually has a relationship with a woman, so. Canadian stolen valor? Well, he doesn't claim he actually fought in Ukraine, so. I don't care if Russia conquers all of European soy boys. They lock down on the United States, let Russian troops try and take the US. A rifle behind every blade and grass. Europe exists because we allow it. See, like, this is the problem with American politicians, that they actually don't teach you international politics and economy. It's not that, like, you don't care about the Europeans, because, like, yeah, probably not so much. The problem is China and Taiwan, and the problem is that Taiwan is making 90% of chip manufacturing in the world right now. So basically, every single cell phone, every single television, every single monitor, most cars, right? Like, all of them come from Taiwan. Now the important thing is for China not to invade Taiwan. And the real reason that America doesn't like Russia right now is because you don't want the Chinese-Russian alliance, Like that would actually threaten you. If China supplies the technology and Russia supplies the manpower, like that would be problematic. So you basically like want to keep Russia in check, like maybe put some nuclear missiles on its border in NATO, right? And be like, if something happens with China, you guys keep out of it. And you can then focus on the situation with Taiwan. And Taiwan is not just like chips and manufacturing; it's also like most of the world trade goes from there. So like if theoretically China was to attack Taiwan, it would be the end of the American empire. Like you would not be a world hegemon anymore. You wouldn't have like the chips in order to keep producing weapons and satellites. You wouldn't be able to control the world trade. Like China would be able to impose tariffs on you. The average lifestyle for the Americans would drop even lower than what a European has today. So that's the reason. They don't have to invade America. Like no one even thinks that China is going to land troops in the United States. Any chance your game will be available in time for Christmas gifts? No, because the voice actresses haven't delivered the lines yet. So I only have like 2 succubi fully voice acted, and I'm waiting for the voice lines for the others. And once I get the voice lines, I still have to edit them and cut them, and it will take like 2 or 3 more months. Hopefully by April next time, I hope. But again, it's not up to me. Like there's a lot of people that are involved in the project, so it's when they deliver the work that I can integrate it in the game. Good to catch you live, Ewa. Thank you, the town under. So we must defend Europe because Taiwan produces chips? Yes, pretty much. And you're also not defending Europe. You're basically using Europe in your own conflicts. Like, there's no way that Germany would have been against Russia. Like, Germany was dealing with Russia. You know, they had the pipeline that you guys blown it up. So theoretically, you're not actually defending Europe. You're more likely enforcing your will. It's more like a partnership, I guess. And you also wouldn't want Europe to have its own military and start wars within Europe, especially when nuclear powers are involved, because that's what started World War I and World War II. I'm not making sense. I'm actually using what American politicians said in the past when they created NATO. Like, this is their justification for it. So if you think I'm not making sense, you should, like, review what the people that created NATO said. But again, like, this was in a time when the politicians would actually have a normal adult conversation with the people, and they would go on a talk show and they would actually say what they think, and they would write a book where they would actually say what they think when doing stuff. Nowadays, like, politicians like Kamala Harris, they go and they say, Ukraine, small country, very small. Russia, big country, very big. Big country invades little country. This is very bad. And that is like the talk that Americans get nowadays. I'm pretty sure they will never know who blew the pipeline, but I don't think like a pipeline could have been blown without the US agreement. You should hire an editor. It takes that long. It's not like it can be done faster than already I do it. Like, the text is in Japanese. I know where it starts. I know where it ends. I just have to copy it. Like every single sentence has to be copied in one audio file. And after that, you gotta assign every single audio file to every single dialogue line. So it's not difficult or anything like that. It's just time intensive. Like, it's like drawing triangles. You just gotta do it. By the way, before I go, I noticed something really interesting, right? So apparently, this was a test given by the smartest woman in the world. So the smartest woman in the world gave this question, and you had people with PhD calling her dumb, calling her stupid, but in the end she was right. And when I looked at the question, it was like, wow, holy shit. So you go on a game show, right? And the game show has 3 doors. And behind one of these doors, you have a car. And the other 2 doors are empty. So the thing is, you get to pick one door. And once you pick the door, the person in charge of the show, they will open one of the two doors you didn't pick, and they will show you that it's empty. And then they will ask you, do you want to switch? And the question is like, should you switch or shouldn't you switch, right? So like you got door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. And 2 are empty, and behind one there is a car. And you pick door number 1, and the presenter of the show, they open door number 2 and they show that it's empty. And it asks you, do you want to stay with number 1 or do you want to go for number 3? And apparently, and when I heard the first time, it's so counterintuitive. But the correct answer is to always switch. Like, it increases your chances in winning exponentially if you switch. And when she said this, like, a lot of people were calling her stupid. People with PhD wrote, insulted her. But she's right, you should switch. And the reason you should switch is that when you pick a door, you only have like 1 out of 3 chances of winning, right? So to get the car is 1 out of 3. While if you're in this area, it's 2 out of 3, right? Now, when the presenter of the show opens this door, then this one becomes the 2 out of 3 chance. While this one is still 1 out of 3. And people still didn't get it. They were still like, no, you're not making sense. This is ridiculous. Why would you do that? So, like, what she did, she said, like, imagine there are 100 doors. And it's the same thing. Like, the car is only under 1 door. And you pick door number 5. And the showrunner opens all the other 98 doors. Except for door number 16. Right? So now people are like, oh yeah, of course I'll choose the number 16. And the reason for this is very simple. It's because the presenter of the show, they know where the car is, right? So like, let's say the car is here, right? If the car is here, then if you pick this door, he will open this door. And if you pick the door in the middle, he will open the door on the left. Like, he knows where the car is, and he will always open an empty door. Which means that if you switch, you actually increase your chances. Now, it doesn't mean you win all the time. But this strategy actually increases your chances of winning. And I was like, well, you know, that's actually really, yeah. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Tatsu-sama, for the 50 CHFs. Holy shit. I appreciate it. Wife wants me in bed. Thank you for the live stream, V. Glad I could catch you after work. Cheers, your wife and child. Well, thank you. Actually, I do have to go because they're probably going to wake up in an hour or so. Expand the number of doors to 1 million, then eliminate all but one after your first pick, and it becomes more intuitive. Exactly. Yeah, like, you gotta take into account that the presenter of the show, he doesn't open doors at random. Like, he actually knows what's behind every door, and he will always open the one without the car. This is not a new question. This has been asked in finance interviews pretty regularly. Well, I didn't know it. It's new for me. It's new for me, okay? And it is counterintuitive. Like normally you wouldn't think it matters. You may think that, oh, the showrunner is only doing this to confuse you. Because that's what people would think. It's like, well, he knows that I picked the door with the car and he wants me to switch. Thank you for the $3, Ballcraft. I don't know what CHFs are. They're Florences, aren't they? No, it can't be. Like, Florences is in Italy, and Italy is under the euro. They're not Mexican pesos. I have no idea what they are. Oh, it's the Monty Hall problem. I see. The choice to switch is still 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. I already explained. It's not 50-50, right? Like, look here, you bigot. So, when you pick a door, it's 1 out of 3, right? So this is the probability of the car being here, while these ones are 2 out of 3, right? Now, if this door is opened, and you see that behind it is nothing, you don't reset the question. This is what happens. Like, this is the logical fallacy. Like people reset it in their head, and they're thinking, oh, well, now this is like 50-50. No, it's not 50-50. This is still 2 out of 3, right? So you just continue the problem where it's left off, right? So like you have now this one right here. Like this is like 2 out of 3. So like your chance with this is better. Why? Because the showrunner knows where the car is. So he just, again, if you think about a million doors and you only pick one, and then the showrunner opens all the other one except door number 400, 506, like, you know that is probably the door with the car, right? Unless you are literally that fucking lucky and got it right the first time, which is, again, like the more doors you have, like the less chances you have of winning. But in this situation, yeah, like your chance to have picked the correct door is very low, right? Like 2 out of 3 times you pick the wrong door. So like if he opened the door and showed you there's nothing behind it, chances are the car, like it's more likely that the car is here because he didn't open this door than the car is here. Like it's unlikely that the car is here. Doesn't mean impossible, it just means unlikely. No, see, this is, again, like, this is what people say. It doesn't matter if the initial chances were 30%, after opening it's 50. No. Again, this would only be true if he opens the door at random, right? So, like, if the showrunner just opens the door at random and shows you, oh, look, the car was here, then yes, you would be right. It would be like a 50-50 thing. But no, he knows where the car is, so he's always going to help you by opening a door that's empty, which means that it's still 2 out of 3. Like, the chance of the car being here is greater just because he didn't open the door. Anyway. Chat, proving why this idea is so popular, yes. Let me see if I can find it on YouTube. Ah, here we go. I actually did find it. It's explained a lot better than I can.
In the following scenario, we are introduced to Donna. Donna has just picked up a grocery voucher from the Community Pregnancy Program, and on her way out...
Oh no, hold on. This is completely different.
It's quite fitting that Marilyn Vos-Savant's last name in French means learned. Learning came easy to her, considering she has an IQ of 228. The prize is behind that one, and a 2 in 3 chance that it's behind one of the other 2. But then the host steps in and gives you some help by opening up the door they know is a loser. So door number 2 must have the rest of the chances. It went from having a 1 in 3 chance to a 2 in 3 shot at the prize. Problem if there are many more doors. Say you chose 1 door out of 100. The host then eliminates 98 doors that they know don't have a prize behind them. That leaves 2 doors, the one you chose and the only other one remaining. Do you switch now? Absolutely. When you first picked, you only had a 1 in 100 chance of getting the right door. The odds of it being behind the other doors was 99 out of 100. The host then filters out the options for you by eliminating 98 bad doors that they know don't have the prize. This is to your advantage because it leaves the remaining door with the rest of the odds, a 99 out of 100 chance of having the car. Some eventually admitted they were in the wrong. A team at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology worked on the problem, and afterwards, Seth Carlson of MIT admitted, "You are indeed correct. My colleagues at work had a ball with this problem, and I dare say that most of them, including me at first, thought you were wrong.
Wow, the experts actually admitted. Holy shit. It's an old question. Why is it attached to some lady who claims to have a billion IQ now? I don't know, because she published it in a magazine. Like, that's what happened. She published the question in a magazine, and the experts laughed at her, but then they looked at the math, and they were like, okay, no, the math checks out. Like, no, she's actually in the right. This is very similar to the gambler fallacy. You have no genuine certainty your first choice is wrong. Yeah. The difference between 33% and 50% is only 17, so changing the door can hypothetically increase your chances by 17%. But in the case of 3 doors, there's a high chance you pick the good door initial. Yeah, that is true. But basically what she is saying is that if you were to play this game 1,000 times and you apply her strategy, you would, like, over 1,000 times, you would win probably like 70% more time than if you didn't apply her strategy, right? Like, this is what probability means. So it just increases your chances. Like, the chances are you pick the wrong door first simply because there's 3 doors, right? So, like, it's very unlikely you got the car. And if you switch, it's more likely that you get the car because the showrunner would always open the wrong door. So that's pretty much what it's based on. And my phone battery died, and I have to also get ready for my wife to wake up. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll upload the video with Dev on my main channel. Take care.